As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hits. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is an era to story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. Barbara Hutton and Prince Alexis Mdivani have a big wedding in Paris, while his brothers get served divorce papers. Now back to As the Money Burns. Most eligible. While one honeymoon falls apart, another set of bachelors appear on the matrimonial market. Section 1. Story. June to July 1933, many are en route to their summer destinations and all the possibilities. At the Ville d'Este, royal newlyweds honeymoon at a magnificent country house at a large estate with 2 golf courses, tennis courts, and swimming pools. From Scotland, a horseshoe of heather is flown to Paris, then delivered to the flower-filled suite among 37 other bouquets. 13 trunks follow the bride for her alone, with over 50 pieces total for the whole entourage. The budding fashionista, slightly chubby heiress Barbara Hutton, now Princess Mdivani, begins her life as a married woman in turmoil. A not-so-erotic ending after a very romantic and fairy tale day, the big church wedding was one better than she could ever imagine or hope for, and it is the most photographed wedding to date. Readers knew everything except the final detail over whether her wedding night lingerie had the Mdivani coronet or not. Publicly, the orchidaceous Barbara is lauded for her taste, sophistication, and fashion sense. Such a contrast to her reality. Over the next days and weeks, the ruggedly handsome, no longer impoverished Russian Prince Alexis Mdivani continues his disparaging remarks about his new wife's less than svelte figure. Her breast, her stomach, her unappealing physique. The prince wooed her heavily up until the night of their wedding. Then, as the train headed out for their honeymoon, his complaints began. Now, as serene lakes surround Barbara, she frets away worrying about her weight. Traveling with a lighter entourage, her faithful companion and surrogate mother, Germaine Tiki Toquet, listens to the young bride's already marital woes. Alas, they consider different options to help Barbara lose some sudden weight. Her Rubenesque figure in a world and time that favors the ultra-slim silhouette. Roughly, she is about 5'4" and 148 pounds. Barbara engages in what she terms a Gandhi diet, meaning practical starvation comprised mainly of coffee for 3 weeks at a time. She quickly whittles away the excess fat she has never been able to shed before. Furthermore, Barbara faces criticism from her family. Mostly her plump, white-haired Aunt Helena Woolworth-McCann detests the constant press attention. It spills over not only from the infamous Mdivani clan, but to the Woolworths as well. Ironically, even the disapproval gets noted and registered in the headlines. Sunday, June 25th, 1933. Also trying to avoid publicity, camera-shy former society it-girl heiress Louise Van Alen secretly boards the Italian ocean liner Rex 2 minutes before leaving dock. The photographers snap a glance of the former Princess Mdivani, later staring out of a porthole as the ship takes off. A week later. Monday, July 3rd, 1933. Another fake royal, Prince Michael Romanov, is released from prison after serving his 90-day jail sentence due to his last accidental stowaway trip and unlawful entry into the United States. His outfit will be the same in which he entered. All brown, brown check suit, brown felt hat, Nazi shirt, and tan Oxfords. He is under 3 years strict probation, and if found in violation will serve 3 to 10 years or more in detention. Wednesday, July 5th, 1933. Aunt Jessie Woolworth Donahue heads back to the United States with her sons Woolworth Willie Donahue and James Jean Donahue, the latter who seemingly won't be joining Cousin Barbara in Venice as hoped, and she probably could use his uplifting humor right now. Instead, Jessie plans to head to Saratoga and Southampton for the summer and return to Woldon Manor for the first time since the death of her husband James Donahue back in 1931. Many renovations have been done recently to the property, including a new jetty on the beachfront and water system for the swimming pool. Franklin Hutton and his wife Irene Hutton head to Biarritz, likely to eventually meet up with the newlyweds, while Aunt Helena takes her own daughter, Helena Macon, back to London, removing them from prying eyes. Last year's pretty debutante is notably heart-free but has caught the attention of Lord Poulet, a former admirer of Doris Duke and whose own sister, Bridget Poulet, is highly fashionable. Could there be another pending wedding on the horizon? Not far behind. Friday, July 14th, 1933. Prince David Mdivani and Prince Serge Mdivani returned to the United States with intentions of addressing their divorces from May Murray and Mary McCormick, respectively. With that agenda, they travel with their sister, Princess Nina Mdivani Uberick, and her star lawyer husband, Charles Uberick, who adeptly handles all matrimonial and legal endeavors for his in-laws. At the same time, Prince Alexis and Barbara make their way to Venice and Lido, where Franklin Hutton's gift should soon arrive, the 60-foot motorboat Ali Baba, an abbreviation of Alexis and Barbara's names. Also heart-free and camera-shy, the no longer awkward tall heiress Doris Duke too stays away from the press, and seemingly without wedding plans or a marriage proposal for that matter. But while the Mdivani and Hutton marriage is having a rough start, many still hope to find love despite the more reluctant heiresses Doris, Louise, and Helena. There are many potential bachelors appearing, whether returning or debuting, onto the marital market. The anticipation of eligible bachelors is causing a bit of a flurry. Let's see who they might be. Thursday, July 20th, 1933. Before the Newport season begins, those matrimonial-minded ladies salivate over what has been for decades the unofficial engagement season. With that agenda, the most eligible bachelor has been chosen. The proud scion John Jacob Astor VI, aka Jakey, also known as the Titanic Baby, having survived the disaster in utero, while his father, John Jacob Astor IV, aka Jack, was the richest man to die while his teen bride and then pregnant Madeline Talmadge Force Astor survives. Jakey was recently connected to Italian princess Donna Cristina Torlonia and has since been affiliated with other potential socialites like Lebrun Bruni Rhinelander. The press celebrates this heart-free bachelor who soon too will come into his fortune this August 1933. Normally, Jakey would revel in such a grand acknowledgement. He is, after all, the grandson of former Society Gilded Age Queen Caroline Astor, and as his older half-brother Vincent Astor has not fulfilled the proper society gentlemanly role within the family, Jakey plans to insert himself instead. The brothers have an ongoing dispute over the vastly uneven fortune, as well as Vincent hinting at Jakey's potential illegitimacy. Whatever the case or amount, Jakey turns 21 on his birthday this August, and thus will inherit his fortune free from both Vincent and Madeline's supervision. For Jakey, that alone cannot come soon enough. Above all, Jakey, like his grandmother Caroline, detests scandal, especially as scandal has plagued him pre-birth and ever since more ongoing speculation, with another round once again due to his mother, Madeline. Though now in her late 30s, Madeline has retained enough of her youthful figure and definitely spirit. Her love life remains problematic. First marrying Jack when she was in her teens, then giving up her Astor inheritance and widowhood to marry for love her childhood sweetheart, William Dick. And now divorcing Dick for her hot younger lover Italian boxer Enzo Fiormonte, nearly half her age. Press reports back on June 17, 1933, that for the divorce, Madeline has taken residence in Reno, Nevada. Rumors immediately hint that Enzo will be soon the future husband number 3. During the current press flurry surrounding Jakey, he confirms the rumors about his mother are very likely to be true, and that he himself has cut off contact and has no interest in participating or encouraging such reckless behavior. Jakey isn't the only anticipated heir this summer. Another young, eligible blue blood bachelor is Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt Jr., who too will turn 21 and inherit what remains of the diminishing Vanderbilt fortune. His father died upon the Lusitania, spinning the fortune further out of control as it dissipated via multiple brothers / his uncles and grandmother Alice Vanderbilt. Next, over in Philadelphia, there is a return to grandeur as the ostentatious and lavish Stotesburys reopen Whitemarsh Hall after nearly a year away. Eva Stotesbury hosts a book launch party for her son, the obliviously handsome heir to 2 fortunes and still divorced James H.R. Cromwell, aka Jimmy. Jimmy has just published his first book, The Voice of Young America. The polite and lovely 600 ladies fan themselves while sitting on the French chateau furniture. In diamonds and pearls, the resplendent Eva, just before the speech, asked the audience to be patient with my new public speaker, who has opened her eyes and converted her to his views. Then, dressed in all summer white, Miss Jock Whitney, formerly Betsy Dobson Altimus Eastman, introduces the speaker, Jimmy. The Democrat author and new President Franklin Delano Roosevelt supporter shocks the members of the Republican Women's Committee of Philadelphia with details of his view on America and economics. Working up a fervor, Jimmy lashes out and warns these GOP ladies the younger generation is fed up with both parties and wanting new options. He remarks the Constitution is outworn. The government under both parties is corrupt, wasteful, and inefficient, with oppression coming from a few at the top. The need to address starvation and misery in the richest nation of the world. Eva nods along as he rails against half-baked futile efforts of reformers, those well-meant but useless sprinklings of perfume upon a cesspool of graft and corruption. He also claims that a new president, backed by a roused public opinion, asks and receives from a cowed Congress the role of super-dictator. In front of a portrait of stepfather, financier, and ultra-conservative E.T. Stotesbury, Jimmy quotes Abraham Lincoln. "This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional rights of amending it or their revolutionary right to dismember and overthrow it. This is our authority, the shining sword with which we will cut the Gordian knot of antiquated government. Our courage must not falter, nor must we doubt our ability to blaze a new trail." Jimmy admits he is currently a Democrat, as it is more liberal of the parties right now, and derides the old guard Republicans. At the end, the applause is negligible. There is a deal of head-wagging and dismay. The silent disapproval has little impact on Jimmy, as he intends to expose them to new ideas and hopes that eventually will assist in opening their minds. After the speech, the 600 women head for refreshment and wander around the enormous estate's Versailles-style gardens, where the ladies soak in the beauty while regaining their self-composure. Meanwhile, the rambunctious press explodes with a new revelation from Los Angeles. The popular Mdivanis, Prince Serge Mdivani and Prince David Mdivani, are making plans to invade Soviet Russia to re-establish the Russian and Georgian thrones. The allegation comes mostly from soon-to-be ex-wife opera singer Princess Mary McCormick Mdivani. She claims that part of the 40,000, almost 968,000 in 2024, that her husband and eldest brother, Prince Serge Mdivani, borrowed from her was for the purpose of building and training an army, at least 400 in Tinseltown with blue uniforms, and that she had been asked to sing and perform for the troops both as a morale booster and as a fundraiser. Also soon to be ex-sister-in-law, actress, singer, dancer, girl with the bee-stung lips, Princess May Murray Mdivani confirms her husband, middle brother, Prince David Mdivani's interest in restoring power. Mary refused to participate and makes the condition of any potential reconciliation only likely if Serge gives up the intent to restore the royal throne, replicating Barbara's own father, Franklin's condition before approving the marriage to the youngest Mdivani brother, Prince. Oh, there is mention of the title Queen Barbara I of Georgia, but since when does a throne get shared? 3 ways? Upon returning from Paris after their father's funeral and brother's wedding, the 2 older princely brothers arrive aboard the Europa, and with their sister Princess Nina Mdivani Uberic and her husband lawyer Charles Uberic. Perfumed and dressed elegantly, the Mdivanis gladly greet the fanatical press. They immediately identify themselves as Serge, I'm Mary. David, I'm May. Really, can one be surprised? After all, David did once list his profession as husband on a speeding ticket in Santa Monica, California. Then they point to Charles, saying they are here to settle the divorce suits, and each brother implies they themselves will be seeking support from their formerly lucrative wives. They do, however, poo-poo the talk of an actual military campaign, stating they participate in a militia group for fun and camaraderie, nothing else. They quite like the American lifestyle and are close to finalizing their American citizenship and plan to keep it that way. Surely Stalin is relieved, though highly unlikely the Soviet regime was shaking over these polo player playboys and their Hollywood troupe, which now alleges was merely prepping for a film. The Soviet Union might be safe, but the hearts of our heiresses might not be. Section 2, History and Historiography. This has been a winding tale indeed, and just when I think things get a little settled, I uncover more wild and crazy new details. By now, I have amassed quite a bit of research for this series via a compilation of books, a few websites, and many articles. Some magazines, but primarily 98% period newspapers. To date, over 5,000 articles, and still growing. Now, the articles are first and foremost to help track down and accurately identify dates and details, as well as flesh out the ambiance and situation in the context within which it is happening. But what I'm uncovering now are long lost and forgotten details, like the army and invasion plans for a non-existent throne, a kidnapping plot, and potential romances. It gets even better as these details illustrate and connect the stories and people further. So many times when we study history, we study a situation, event, or person with a narrow monofocus. I, however, have always been interested in parallel events and situations. This comparison of things for better reference and understanding, because rarely do things happen only in a vacuum. Out of the primary heirs and heiresses, only Barbara Hutton and Doris Duke have been written about as in multiple books and documentaries. The next might be Huntington Hartford, but more in the nature of articles and news pieces, and very little in the way outside of those within his world would have paid attention. John Jacob Astor VI, aka Jakey, is written in relation to his family or Huntington, but other than occasional news items, not too much focus on his own. And Jakey's cousin, Louise Van Alen, hardly at all except a small mention in relation to Barbara and only in context of Barbara, and outside of that, focus goes to her mother, Daisy Van Alen's relation to Newport. Ditto, many recurring characters arrive in our story as their names appeared when following the larger main stories, each a reference with very little context, and for me, that doesn't feel sufficient. Even for a footnote reference, I want more context. As well, I don't want to just repeat general references, as in the media dislike and hounding of both Doris and Barbara, but what was said and when. Concrete facts, scandals, details. All of the 4 biographies on Barbara talk about how she is vilified in the press. After her December 1930 debutante ball, she does become a target of more press, but it hasn't been necessarily all that negative. Most of that does come, but possibly later, and not sure how soon within our own timeline of the primary events to be covered. But now, during this story's period, June 1933, with the Hutton Mdivani wedding, the floodgates have opened up, but relatively more positive and curious so far. Likewise, the words camera shy and heart free are now popping up in relation to several people like Doris, Louise, Jakey, and others, in contrast to Barbara and the endless want of similar stories. Of course, we know and have seen plenty of celebrities who will get a wave of approval only to eventually turn into condemnation, so it is interesting to see how Barbara is portrayed. The press is noting all things fashionable: nail, hair, clothes, hats, jewelry, everything. You would think of her as a modern influencer. Then there are the words so flattering. Orchidaceous sticks out. The actual definition is first relating to orchids, blooming, and beauty, while the second definition implies showy and ostentatious, likely a mixture of both. But the New York Daily News article by gossip columnist Nancy Randolph, in which the adjective appears, is definitely more flattering towards Barbara. And that is obvious because it is in contrast to referencing of Louise as unworldly, and not in the ethereal sense, but as in unsophisticated and boring. Why would there be a need to diss Louise so publicly, especially as she plays the nice, quiet, good girl game? It reminds you about the whole Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie debate, or any time women are pitted against each other in a love triangle publicly. The need to take sides on matters really none of our business, and where our opinions hardly make the deciding factors for those involved, only adding to the humiliation in the long run. But alas, the wealthy were and are subject of high interest. My recent trip for new and old familiar resources has yielded some interesting new twists and flavors to our story, which will be revealed in the upcoming months. Definitely, this is one twisted tale that gets more convoluted with each new discovery. But don't worry, I do plan to reveal all within the process of good timing and story. Section 3, Contemporary and Personal Relevance. Whether you consider history as something that rhymes, repeats, or recycles, there is without a doubt patterns and situations that recur throughout time. Largely, that is based on consistencies within human nature itself. We don't always have to be exactly the same, and definitely not all the time. But we do have set points within our makeup that will respond to situations and dynamics within predictable ranges. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as psychology if everything was random or if everything was reliably the same. It is somewhat surprising how eerily close some of the same arguments Jimmy Cromwell presents in his 1933 political speech could be stated exactly in today's time as we approach the 2024 American presidential election, as well as similar elections in other nations. Whether similar or different party lines, the perception of dire circumstances, and not too hyperbolic, for it was the Great Depression back then and today, well, we know is definitely a mess too. Adding to that, only recently, the August 5th, 2024 stock market crash is the lowest point on the American Dow in 2 years since December 2022. Over $650 billion is the estimated loss for companies deemed the Magnificent Seven: Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta-Facebook, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla, followed by one of the best days of trading by the end of the week and possible recovery. Speculation asks if this is a temporary blip or could it become a series leading to a similar 1929 Wall Street crash, which took almost 2 decades to recover. This time around, we might handle things differently, certain procedures and methods of dealing with company implosions to recuperate some of the cost. But who knows if this is the beginning of an even larger situation, and we know what the other one led to. But if we can learn one past lesson from this series, be on the lookout because change is inevitable. For every circumstance, there is a rise and a fall, both good and bad. Scams will be exposed while new ones form. Fortunes made and lost. Some things happen for the better and others for the worse. What we see initially on the surface might not be true. And still, in most situations, time slowly reveals all. I really want this episode to be lighter and more humorous in nature, as we can certainly enjoy the irony of certain circumstances as we know those particular situations ended more benignly. The ambience of an era and time, the reinvigoration of romance and wishful fantasy. The fascination with the wealthy serves as a distraction from more serious surrounding circumstances. More stories yet to come as our heirs and heiresses have plenty of challenges and scandals to face while fortunes are at stake. Want to see some of the places mentioned? Check out Gary Lawrance's Mansions of the Gilded Age and the Gilded Age Society on both Instagram and Meta-Facebook. He regularly features photos of both Woolden Manor and Whitemarsh Hall and their owners. Gary also has the YouTube channel Mansions of the Gilded Age and hosts webinars via New York Adventure Club. Gary gives wonderful and elaborate details on the architecture and stories of those involved. Links in the notes and transcript. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns. As tough times persist, several dangers lie ahead for dreams, fortunes, and more importantly, life itself. Until then. As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via GoodPods X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, now Meta, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.